How do you do? Hope you can hear me.
I can hear you perfectly, Rafi. How are you today?
I am very, very well, very, very well in this under the COVID circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
You
Same
know,
here.
limited, limited, very, very limited. So much time, but you can't do anything.
No, it's tough. It's very tough right now. It's very tough. No question about that. Wish it was a lot better. This is uh this is now over 2 months. I mean, this has been going on. I mean, 9 weeks. So it's not pleasant, I'll tell you.
It's crazy. I try to keep active. I work in the health industry, the gym industry. Um, so my normal day is very, very active, and so to go from that to this is it's a challenge. It's an interesting challenge. The only good thing that I can say is that we've had great weather. We've had great weather. Sun's been shining. Um, so I've been able to get my bike rides in, but other than that, I think that's the saving grace. That's the saving grace.
Uh,
Um,
Agreed. No
yeah,
question about
no question, no question about it. And I think we're gonna start this thing. We're gonna start this thing a little differently. Um, I want to talk about what should this call? Let's try it over here. Let's experimenting with the lighting. Is it working? I don't know. I don't know. Okay, gonna start this thing a little bit differently. Um, with this COVID-19, with the lockdown, my mind strays to health. Um, there's been a famous bodybuilder. I know it's not boxing. A famous bodybuilder who was locked up in his house, alone. His kids with the mother, and his girlfriend. She wasn't with him. So he's locked up in his big house, up and coming. Well, he's doing very well. He's a new on the scene last few years, and had everything to live for. Sponsorships. He was getting very, very well paid, but unfortunately, news came through a couple of days ago that I'm talking about Luke Sandow, British bodybuilder, doing very, very well. New up and comer. Turned out that he had took his own life. Um, Everything going for him, but it seems as if the words coming out, news is coming out that he struggled with health, struggled with mental health throughout his life. And it seems as if indications are that this COVID lockdown, he just couldn't handle it, couldn't hack it. The gym was his therapy, as it is for many people. Many people, many regular gym goers, it helps them. It helps them mentally. But I can speak from a personal point of view. It helps me mentally as well. It's like when I was at college, at the end of a tough day, me and one of my mates, we always had our gym bag. Say, gym today? Say, yeah, gym today. Go to the gym and everything. The blackboard was wiped clean. We felt like new people. It's therapeutic. And so as a consequence of this COVID-19 lockdown, I think there's a lot of suffering going on. There's a lot of real suffering from people who, I was talking to another gym owner, and he says he's got multiple people who go to his gym who he knows for a fact because they've told him that the gym took them away from a past addiction. And so it's a very, very serious thing. Very, very serious thing, Rick.
Well, when your lifestyle that you used to every day for years gets upended completely, like a 360 complete turnaround. This is the effects. I mean, I mean, I have not, contemplated suicide or anything sad like that, or tragic like that, or that severe, but it's depressing. I mean, I really look forward to waking up on Wednesday morning knowing I'm going to be on your show. Normally, to be on a podcast was quote, no big deal, just another day at the office. But right now, that's one thing I do look forward to, because there is nothing else to look forward to unless I know I'm going to be on a podcast. That's why I really appreciate you telling me a week in advance, oh, Rick, you're going to be on next week, because I look forward to that. And when I wake up on this morning, as I have the last bunch of Wednesday mornings, knowing I'm going to be on your show, it really hasn't. It's given me a little spirit, a little jump to my step. Because other than that, it'd be depressing. I am on other shows. Just on a show the other night called Cornerman Boxing. It was a YouTube channel, and it was on Brendan Taylor. You know Brendan.
Yeah.
And when I know I'm scheduled for these things, it's exciting, because and normally it's not exciting. It's just another thing I do and provide people in boxing. But right now, it's something that I really look forward to, because there's nothing to look forward to except my lovely wife. Professionally and socially, there's nothing. So if it wasn't for being with my wife, as far as her being my wife, and there was just nothing going on. I mean, we had a Mother's Day on Sunday. Couldn't even see my mother. I mean, now that my mother's in an old folks home, I think she lives in the same complex as I live in. We live in a beautiful condominium complex here in a suburb of Buffalo, New York, called Williamsville. And she just nervous. She'll be 81 years old this month, and oh no, I might catch something. I don't know if you have it. Mom, I had no symptoms of it at all. Oh no. So my wife shot over there the other day and gave her Mother's Day present, and left immediately. Didn't even go in her unit in her home. Just did it on the outside and left. I mean, what are you going to do right now? I mean, the world is not what it was, 90 days ago. I mean, if you would have said this was going to happen when we were celebrating New Year's Eve on December 31st, I would have said, nah, not like this could happen. And it happened. Yeah. So, Raph, I sympathize, and my condolences to the family of anybody who's going through these severe times, and where somebody would actually take his own life. I mean, I guess I could see that happening. But and my condolences to all involved, family members and other people out there that have family that are distressed. That's one of the reasons why I call and check up on my relatives daily, almost daily, and see if they're all right, how they're doing, give them a little airtime, 10, 15 minutes a piece, and show I care and move on. You know what I'm saying? It's nothing you can do right now. You can't do anything more than that for anybody. That's the problem. So
yeah,
hopefully it changes very quickly, because this is getting really, really mentally stagnating.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. I'm a guy, I don't really like to talk on the telephone too much. I'm not really a telephone guy, Some people that can call you up and they can chat. I'm not really a telephone guy. I just like to. In comes Troy Graham. Yes, I'm really. Yeah, man, I'm all good. Talk to you in a sec, Troy. I'm not really a telephone guy, but I found in this COVID era, I'm actually enjoying speaking on the telephone. I'm enjoying talking to people on the telephone for a change. I'm a face-to-face guy. Or this is like face-to-face. Yeah.
That's what I just said. Everything is a new adjustment to our lifestyles. I mean, everything right now. So there you go. You didn't like talking on the phone, but now you're talking on the phone because you can't see somebody in person. So, what can you say? I mean, this is society of the world today. This is what we're dealing with. Everybody's dealing with the same problem. It's not particular to the UK. It's not particular to the US. This is a world pandemic. So it is. We just got to make the best of it, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I just appreciate being on your show. Normally, people are thanking me for coming on the show. I want to thank you for being on the show. A little reversal there.
A little bit of a reversal, and in comes a man like Troy Graham. Troy, how are you today?
Oh, great. How you doing, gentlemen? How's everybody doing?
Good, Troy.
Man.
Great.
Yeah, man. Troy. Bearing up under the COVID era. Thank your blessings. Count your blessings. I think it's a time like this when people really need to have a steady head. You really need to have a sense of levity. You really need to do the things that make people happy. If you're fortunate enough to be able to say hello and have a pleasant word with your neighbors, then do so. Wash your car in the sun. Times like this, you really focus. Times like this, you really focus on what can I do? What are the things that make me happy? Because there's so few choices. And I think the way I wanted to start this off was in kind of memory of the one guy who probably symbolizes many, many other people. They have activities, people who use physical activity to keep them sane. I'm not saying I'm in that category. I'm not imbalanced like that, but some people are. And I just wanted the starting of the show to be a kind of acknowledgement. A kind of acknowledgement to those people in that situation. We're all in the situation, but for some people, it is actually critical. It is actually critical that they have access to certain things which they just don't have access to now. And what I'm saying is to all my gym buddies, all my clients, non-clients, just people who find themselves in that situation, who there must be millions when it comes to around the world, millions of people who have certain outdoor activities or activities they participate in that requires that they be outdoor or at a certain location. The location's closed. They can't go outdoors. This is just an acknowledgement to them, and just my way of saying stick in there. Find the things that make you happy that you can do. For me, it's riding my bike, washing my car, cleaning my car. Find the things that make you happy that you can do legally and do them. Troy Graham.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, well, I drive for the Maryland Food Bank, man, which is connected to my church, right? Yeah. So I pick up from the supermarkets 3 days a week, and then 5 days a week we pick up from a catering company. So basically, the church feeds people about 5 to 6 days a week, and I take part in that. That's what gives me my peace. Because before all this started, I actually got back into training fighters, and then when this hit, of course, all the amateur stuff was canceled, and the gym was closed. And I was working with 4 fighters. One of them was 29, and the rest of them were all 18. And you know what, Rick? I was kind of surprised, man, that so much of what I was showing them was like, wow, this is something new under the sun to them. I just figured that most, if you're 29 and up, you should have seen some of this already.
You would think so, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you didn't want to. Maybe you didn't watch a lot of boxing, because a lot of boxing starts at 10 o'clock at night, and a lot of guys are sleeping already. So who knows? You just don't know. But I mean, even myself, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was younger, I'd wait around for a fight to start. I'd fall asleep and have to watch it in the middle of the night on the rerun or the next day. So, it happens, but that could be a reason why maybe he's working hours. Who knows, So, you don't watch a lot of cable TV when you're incarcerated. So, a lot of stations. So who knows, that might be another reason. You just don't know. Everybody's different,
I'm still here. It's just my audio went low because I got a phone call that came in. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Where's Raphie?
I got to jump off and jump back in. My audio went low because of the phone call.
Raph disappeared.
No,
Raph, what?
I'm not disappeared, Rick. I'm not disappeared. Fear not. Fear not. I am here. Let's get into. Okay, we've done that. We've done the warming I wanted to do. I wanted to acknowledge people who are suffering under that. Find what works for you. Find what makes you happy and do it. That is my message. I think that's the message. Okay, so let's get into the questions. It's going to be free flowing. It's going to be a free flowing thing. Let's have our first question. Our first question comes from none other than El Jefe. It says, ask Rick, what are his thoughts on the Golden Boy situation with Canelo? And will Canelo leave to go to Matchroom?
No, he won't. He's got a contract. Oscar and Canelo have a contract that I think is only like 2 or 3 fights in. It's for 11 fights and total, and there are only 2 or 3 fights into that contract. I believe 3 fights. They are 3 fights they're in, and they've got 8 to go over the next 4 years. And I'm sure there's some kind of clause in there that if he does do another deal with the zone, that they're involved, that Golden Boy would be the lead guy. There's always, very rare does a guy become, quote, a free agent. Very rare. There's always provisions, money that changes hands if the fighter makes X amount of dollars in a year or makes X amount of dollars in how long the contract is. It extends itself automatically. Oscar has done nothing wrong, okay, as the promoter of the fighter. Oscar has done a good job with him. Oscar is doing a good job with Ryan Garcia right now. Oscar is doing a good job with Virgil Ortiz. And he's also has done a good job with Patrick Teixeira, who became the WBO junior middleweight world champion in late at the end of the year. I believe it was late November, early December. And it's tough to argue with those kind of facts when you've got 6 world champions right now. Oscar does. Canelo being the lead guy, but Canelo would be the lead guy in any organization, not just Oscar's. And for a smaller promotional company than Top Rank and PBC, which is basically a promotional company, even though they're not a legal promoter, they are a promotional company in the sense that they are the outlet who's distributing money. And Eddie Hearn, I think Oscar gets an awful lot of bang for his buck for the amount of employees he has and the amount of shows he has. He's done very well having now 6 world champions and 2 top contenders. Canelo may have personal issues with Oscar, and he might be mad at Oscar. And I'm not saying they're just or unjust. I'm not going to go there. But Oscar has done a great job, and Golden Boy, the company, Golden Boy GBP, has done a great job with Canelo. So there's nothing to complain about. 0. Eddie Hearn, this is a fallacy. Okay, Eddie Hearn has no association with Golden Boy, the fighter, or anything like that. Eddie has shows, was the first promoter on the zone. Since then, Golden Boy came on with all their fights, most all their fights, and GGG did his own deal without Eddie, but he's elected to use Eddie as the promoter of the shows for the purpose of not having to hire promoters and staff to do the shows. He just found that he used Eddie's staff. DAZN was comfortable with that, so that's what they're doing. But in reality, that Golden Boy's doing a very good job of Canelo. If Canelo's mad and he's disappointed in Oscar, that's a personal feeling. That's not because that Oscar's really done anything wrong professionally.
You want to comment on that, Troy?
No, I was listening. I was just trying to figure out what's the problem then with Canelo. Why would he want to leave if everything is being done, is it right by him? Is it money or what? Or he just wants to be his own man?
No, he had a problem with this deal with where he got stripped of the one title when Dovinchenko fought GGG for the vacant title, and they didn't make a deal with Dovinchenko, and he was the mandatory and all this other, and he didn't want to fight Canelo, and you know what? It's so the intricacies there are so different because of the fact that Canelo is such a huge moneymaker, where he thinks he's pulling the promoter. Well, he might be pulling the promoter, but the promoter has done a good job with him. It goes both ways, and I think it's a very fair exchange. I'm not saying Eddie Hearn couldn't do a good job. Not saying Bob Arum couldn't do a good job, but there's nothing wrong with the job Oscar's done and continues to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, based on what I'm hearing, it seems like something minor that he just want to make big. It doesn't seem like anything that actually slowed down his career, lost him money or lost him fans or anything like that, right?
Correct.
Right. So yeah, it's just you can't sweat the small stuff, man. Because since that fight with Triple G or whatever, all that happened, he's went on and did bigger and better things, correct? And he's made more money.
Oh yeah.
So I don't see what the problem is. But then again, I'm not inside the man's head.
Troy, anybody gets $35 million to fight Rocky Fielding, Oscar's a genius.
Right. You know what? I want to ask you about that. That all these numbers I keep hearing about fighters. Someone like a Canelo, how much does he take? Because I know most fighters, and you could probably clarify this. Most fighters take home less than 30% of their purse, don't they?
No, that's completely false. No.
Help me out. Help me out. Then.
Michael Moore, I love him, but he came out with a statement on social media recently to a reporter that he took home 30% of his money. No, something is wrong. Okay, how it works is if your promoter promotes the show, so let's just deal with the figure of $1 million. That's the easiest figure to deal with, right? Okay. Right. So your trainer gets 10% off the top. Okay.
I thought it was 15.
No, trainers get 10.
Okay.
Okay. Then 3% goes to the organization. So right off the bat, you're out $130,000. That's $870. Your people have to get paid. Now, managers that invest money in fighters normally take 30%. But once that contract comes to an end, and most fight managers will take as little as 10%. Okay, so you can't go by the guy who invests all this money in a fighter to get his 30%. You can't do that because he was supporting the fighter financially when the fighter was a nobody and a bust out. Okay, right? Okay, so let's deal with 10%. Okay, okay. So now you got 10% of the 870,000, which is 87,000. So in round figures, that's 800,000. Then you take your man, your conditioner, nutritionalist. That all comes to about 5%. Okay, a fighter of that quality fighting for $1 million is supposed to retain 750,000 of his money, which is 25%. Okay, now this is where Michael erred in his career. Okay, he had a promoter named Bill Kazilski called Fight Night Productions or Fight Night Promotions out of a Detroit suburb. Okay, and he was the promoter of the fighter. He took the fighter to main events and did a co-promotional deal, and Bill Kazilski's money came off the top. So he took on let's say $10 million when he fought George Foreman. He got $2.5 million off the top for himself. And then the managers like Shelley Finkel had a small piece. The Davenport family had a big piece because they invested a lot of money in him. Okay, so that's why it was chafed down to approximately $400 and some thousand that he made per fight. But the guys that are whose promoter is promoting the fight, and they've already fulfilled their first part of the contract, which would be when the manager's getting 30% so he can get his money back. Most managers will take 10% if they're not investing money or they've already got their money back. So that's it. What he said was very, very unfair. Okay, because his situation was unique. Michael erred in having position take the fighter to main event. He shouldn't have allowed that. That was his mistake. Okay, you can't blame boxing for that. He did not heed to advice from an attorney. He didn't talk to an attorney, obviously, or the attorney didn't know what he was doing. Something was wrong. Okay, I'll leave it like that. So that's the best way to put it.
Something was very, very wrong. Something was very, very wrong. You say Michael. Which Michael are we talking about? Sorry.
Michael Moore. Michael Moore.
Okay. So that story was about Michael Moore's arrangements.
Well, yes, basically speaking. You know, because the reason why I used him is because he came out with a video. If he wouldn't have come out with that video, his name would not have been mentioned. But because he came out with a video the other day from a reporter, that's why I use him.
Is Michael in the poorhouse now?
No, he's not rich and he's not in the poorhouse. He's in between.
Well, he should have been rich.
Correct.
Well,
correct. He made about $45 million in his career. Correct.
He made how much? He made how much?
About $45 million, I would say.
And he walked away with half of that or a quarter? 30? You don't know.
He says 30%. So, you know, don't forget, he started fighting for big money in 1993. 94, he won the heavyweight championship of the world. He was including the WBO heavyweight title. He was 3-time heavyweight champ. He was a WBO light heavyweight champ, and he didn't make a lot of money at that point in his career. But he had the Davenport, gave him a signing bonus, paid him big money every month, paid his bills, and they wanted the 30. They're entitled to 30%. There's nothing you can say about it. That's just what the facts are.
Because Brendan Ingle, there's a lot of fighters who fall out with their original coaches. You have the story of Brendan Ingle and Prince Nassim Hamed.
Yep.
When the Prince left him and went over, switch trainers because he didn't want to pay Brendan. I don't know how much Brendan was getting. Brendan was getting a big slice because I guess Brendan subsidized him in his early career. So Brendan was getting a big chunk of out of that, and the Prince didn't want to pay him.
So that's being a pig on the fighter's part, to be honest with you. Doesn't surprise me, but when you take when you take money from people and services, goods and services, they need to get paid. There's no free lunch. It's no different when you take like JEFE said, you take a girl out for dinner. Why? So you can take her back to your place or go back to her place. You don't take her to dinner because she's wonderful.
Or she's hungry. You don't
take or for the conversation, huh?
Yeah, right. Conversation, or else you could have talked over the phone. I've always, I'm not a big proponent of the going out to dinner business. Maybe
I can cook.
Maybe exactly.
Listen, Raphie and Troy. Years ago, I asked a girl out on a date, and it was on a Wednesday, and it's for Saturday night. And she says, "Well, call me at about 3:30 on Saturday afternoon." I says, "Why?" I said, "I'll let you know if I'm hungry or not." Well, there you go.
Oh, okay. The dinner, let him know if you're hungry. Damn,
it's just a nice way of telling you no.
At least you didn't say she was washing her hair.
No, so, but she, lucky for me, she turned out to be a little hungry.
Oh, there you go. So you left the door open. She left
We
the
got
door.
a question from BH coming through here.
BH coming through. Does Rick and Raphie think the UFC model over the past weekend is a good example for boxing to follow? That's
No.
another question.
No, it was way too early, and it came out in the Wall Street Journal since Saturday night this week, and I tweeted my comment on it. It shows you how desperate they were because Endeavor borrowed, which owns 51% of the UFC, which is a big financial entertainment conglomerate. They borrowed $260 million at 11% interest, which is highway robbery. I know a guy who just borrowed millions at 3.25%. So
Wow.
give you an idea how desperate they are. And they needed to get that show off the ground for gross proceeds, for profits, to pay their overhead because they haven't done a show in months. And that's what reality is. And it was not a good example to follow. Now, if you're talking about the modus operandi of physically doing the show, I don't know about that. I don't know about that either. But the one team, one fighter, and two or three of his handlers had the coronavirus. I don't know if the whole thing was a good idea. I think it was way too early. I think the earliest boxing should come back is late June, early July, and that a 10-day period there. And that's when Bob Arum's planning shows, and that's when Golden Boy's coming back on July 4th. And I think that they should have waited. But obviously they were desperate. They were so desperate they're going to do a show 3 weeks ago against California law on a Native American reservation in California. Then they were talking about going to a private island, but the problem was there's so many restrictions on air travel right now from all these different countries. So it was not a good idea to do that show. Let's see what becomes of it. They've got some other shows scheduled going forward, and you know what? Great, fantastic for Dana White and UFC. But obviously they needed the money because I feel it was an act of desperation. Now, some people could look at it and say, "Oh, he was at Dana, he's aggressive." No. If Bob Arum doesn't need the money, Oscar doesn't need the money. They're just sitting there and waiting. Okay, they are in waiting. Okay, and they will do their shows in a timely, orderly fashion. They don't need UFC to show them what to do. Okay, especially Bob Arum.
But it's not a shame. It's no embarrassment for a company to need that cash flow. It ain't no shame. It ain't no embarrassment.
It's an embarrassment to have to borrow $260 million at 11%. That's an embarrassment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I've given out street loans for 10% a year.
Well, I mean, I know a lot. I know a lot about the UFC. Well, it's a long story, but anyway, I know a lot about the UFC. I've been following them for a long time, and I know that when they were sold to Endeavor, they were sold at a bit of a peak. It was a bit of a peak for the UFC, but a lot of their stars were leaving. Ronda Rousey was leaving. Conor McGregor had I think he just lost, or he was about to lose. They bought it and then he lost. So that was a big two major star powers, star entities for the UFC. One of them became non-existent because she left, Ronda Rousey.
To show you what their sport's all about compared to boxing, Wilder and Fury just got $28 million apiece and did 875,000 people on pay-per-view. He goes and pays these guys 400 and some thousand apiece in the main event, 300 some thousand in the co-feature, and so on down the line, and does 700,000 homes. I think he's taking advantage of the fighters slightly.
Well, that's long been known. They sold to Endeavor when they were at a peak and they were coming down from the peak. So basically, to put it in layman's terms, Endeavor bought the UFC at a time where, for a house buyer, it would be the equivalent of when the stock house prices were at its highest. That's when Endeavor bought the UFC. And as for the As for the payments to the fighters, yeah, that's been a gripe that's been going on now since Tito Ortiz 10 years ago. That's been a big gripe. I was talking about Dana driving around with Ferraris, and they're driving around in a little woofties or whatever you call it over there. So that's been a long held gripe with the UFC. They pay cheap.
No, I wouldn't call it cheap. That's not the right word. What the right word is, it's called not it's called they're looking to retain dollars and make profits, and they're depressing the value of their own fighters with intent. They don't let the fighters get too big anymore. That's what they do. They have more volume fighters, and they're not relying on one or two fighters like Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor. They've got a lot of guys making 400, 450, 500,000 rather than paying one guy, ridiculous money like a Conor McGregor.
So with the figures that you just mentioned for the UFC, with those figures that you just mentioned, in terms of taking at the gate and how many homes, PPVs they're sold, how much would those 400,000 guys, the $400,000 guys, how much would they be making in a boxing match based on the figures that you just mentioned?
It was very simple. Wilder and Fury just made $28 million apiece. I mean, and did 175,000 more homes. So should they be getting 10 million apiece, 7.5 million apiece? Well, they have more fights on a show. So let's say you should get 3-4 million apiece. The top guy, some of the co-features, $1 million apiece. That would be pretty equal. Okay, yeah. So they're grossly underpaid, maybe 10 times the amount underpaid. Maybe they're getting 10% of what they should be getting.
That's foul. That's foul. That's foul. That's foul when you break it down like that. It's often been a gripe with UFC fighters for a long time now. And damn, those figures are kind of horrific. But hold on. Do you really think that Wilder and Fury got 28 million for their last fight?
Oh yeah, forget what was on the contract. On the contract's just because of the boxing commissions and the taxes on the foreign fighter. The two of them 20 million apiece.
How much? 20 million apiece.
28
million apiece.
Yep.
Damn.
Is that after taxes or before?
No, that was before.
Okay, before taxes and all the expenses and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We got one. El Jefe's got another one here.
El Jefe's got another one. Will Zanfa Promotions still go on as planned with their fights in June in Mexico?
I don't see why they wouldn't. Fernando Beltran's a very good promoter in Mexico. He's got the tentacles to pull it off. I don't see any reason why they're not going to do those shows. If they do, if they don't do them, I'd be shocked. So yes, I believe they will be going through with those shows.
Okay, so
forget all his fighters are promoted. All those guys are promoted by Bob Arum that he's talking about using in those fights. So probably going to be on ESPN and those kind of things.
Okay, so what is this one? It says Lee in the building. So ask Rick, what are the qualities that make a long reigning champion? Which young up and coming fighters do you think will become long reigning champions? That's two-parter, Rick. Two-parter.
Hard work, dedication to the supreme dedication to their craft, and being in constant great shape all the time, not letting themselves blow up in between fights are definite ingredients because fighters don't fight today, because fighters don't fight as often as they used to many years ago. So in other words, 15, 20 years ago, champions fought 3 and 4 times a year. Today they fight 1.5 times a year, 2 times a year. In other words, like Leo Santa Cruz fights twice every 3 years. 3 times every 2 years. Gary Russell fights once a year. and Terrence Crawford and Earl Spence normally fight twice a year. So to stay in shape in between the fights, be supremely dedicated to training and diet and lifestyle is really important. That was part of the reason why Bernard Hopkins lasted as long as he did at a high level, because he lived right, no question about it. And I believe that's how Floyd Mayweather lasted so long at a high level. He lived right, as far as conditioning, limiting his alcohol consumption, not smoking, not doing drugs. If he's gonna keep late hours, it was like right after a fight for like 2-3 weeks, and then back to the gym and start getting ready to go slowly but surely, and always running in between and everything else. So those are key ingredients. Let's throw out skill and power and talent, because you can't go by that. Because that's always at a different level. But all fighters can be diligent. All fighters can eat right. All fighters can train properly. Talent level is completely different, because some people are talented, some people are natural punchers, some people can't crack an egg.
Yeah.
That's just the way it works. So I would say dedication, and another thing is that people don't talk about personal surroundings, not letting people around you that will pull you down. A bad woman. There's a great line: behind every great man is a better woman. Behind every screwed up guy is a worse woman. There's a lot of people.
100% live lyrics from the Bank of Reality, ladies and gentlemen, coming to you here courtesy of Raphael Dawkins Combat Radio, and another one from El Jefe. Are we going with one?
I can't see it.
With one from El Jefe? Where is it? Here it is. Disappeared. Who is the best matchmaker in the game?
Okay, I'll tell you who the best by far. Brad Goodman from Top Rank. But his boss is the Hall of Famer Bruce Trampler, who's the senior matchmaker at Top Rank, who's now like 71 years old. But Bruce is in the Hall of Fame. Brad Goodman's on his way to the Hall of Fame within a year or two. He was already on the ballot this year. He's by far the best pure matchmaker in the business. Where when I say pure, he doesn't do anything else. In other words, that's his function, matchmaking.
Mm-hmm. Another one.
Nobody's asking Brad to give a public speech at a press conference.
Say that again.
Nobody's asking Brad to give a public speech at a press conference. Okay.
What does that mean? He's not a good speaker. He's a good. What?
No, but he's there for what he's doing. He's not like the face of the company.
Oh,
he's the guy who sits in the back room, makes it, and does the matchmaking.
Oh, I got you. Okay, another one from El Jefe. How much control does Oscar have in Golden Boy, or has Roberto Diaz and Eric Gomez taken over?
Oscar's involved in the day-to-day operations along with Eric Gomez and making the top decisions. Robert Diaz and Gomez make the decisions on the next level down together. But on the top level, Oscar and Eric Gomez make them together, and on the next level down, Eric Gomez, Robert Diaz answers to Gomez, and they make those decisions together.
Okay, I got you.
I got a question for you. How much control does Bernard Hopkins have over there? Or what is his purpose? What is?
You know what? I think he's almost like a senior advisor. He's a small stockholder minority in the amount of stock he owns, not because of minority. I believe he owns 5%. I believe, but he's got some input. He's got some input, no question about that.
I always thought he was brought on to help Oscar get African American fighters to sign with him. That's what I thought he was brought on from.
I don't think there's any truth to that. I think that's a public fallacy that people and boxing people say that, but I don't believe that to be true. First of all, they've never signed a lot of African American fighters, even with Oscar. So they've got maybe 3 or 4. I know they've got the Lamont Roach, who just lost. He had a shot at Jamel Herring for the world title. He lost a decision. I know they got the Ballard kid, Demetrius Ballard from Washington, D.C. You know, they don't need that many. You know, they got maybe 3, maybe 4. They've never had a lot since Al Heyman took all the fighters away.
Okay. And you know, why do you think that is? Just because it kind of seems like he's known for building up, you know, Latino fighters?
No. Let me explain. Top Rank, the same thing. It's geographic. They're out in the West Coast. Your boxing fans in the West Coast are Mexicans, number one. And those guys have TV deals with Mexican TV companies. And Mexican TV companies want to see Mexican fighters. So, in other words,
that makes sense.
What's that?
I said that makes sense.
Right. So if you've got the Cate beer, let's just say, for instance, okay, you've got the Cate beer for a sponsor, Corona for a sponsor, Modelo, any of these Mexican beers, and you're bringing Mexican TV, they want to see Mexican fighters. You know, no offense to African Americans, but it's like turning on the old BET boxing series years ago and seeing seeing a white guy or a Mexican beat up a black guy. Bad for the demographics and the ratings. Just what reality. You know what I'm saying? It's not a racist statement at all. It's what reality is. So you've always got to tailor your audience, your fighters, to what your audience is going to be. And when you're sitting in Indio, California, with a big Mexican community out there, and where Fantasy Springs is in these places, you've got to have Mexican fighters. That's all there is to it. And if you do shows at the Stub Hub out there and these kind of places, you got to have Mexican fighters because that's what's out there. Okay. Now, if you're doing shows in Washington, D.C. and Southern Maryland and New York City and New Jersey, you can have, in Detroit, black fighters are great because that's where, in Chicago and stuff like that. Okay, that's fine. But when you get out there, you've got to have Mexican fighters. And you know what? That's just basic business for Bob Arum. That's basic business for Oscar. And anybody who's a West Coast promoter, Thompson Boxing, another one. That's just the way it is out there. That's
why does he go for African American fighters when he can't promote them? Didn't he have Wilder at one point?
Yes.
He didn't really have. He didn't have Wilder. That was Al Heyman had him. And he really didn't basically have. He thought he had him, and then because Richard Schaefer, Oscar won $40 million lawsuit. He actually got paid $40 million by Schaefer and Heyman, which the Wydell Reed fund of the $550 million paid for, because Richard Schaefer was supposed to have these fighters signed up for Oscar, and he never did. It was all a bunch of hocus pocus. It was a fraud, is what it was. He defrauded Oscar.
Yeah.
So lied to him and everything, honchfoggled him, bamboozled him. Should I use more wording?
Finagled him.
Yes, he did, definitely. So, but they've always had a few African American fighters, but that's not the gist of their company. It's definitely Mexican nationals and Mexican Americans, definitely.
Well, that's their market. That's who they cater for. That's the fighters they have. So
listen, it's like calling Frank Warren up and saying, "Hey, I got this guy from Nigeria. Do you want to promote him?" I says, he's living in England, number one, and how good is he? If he's really good and he's living in England, he'll say yes. If he's already a world champion, he'll say yes. But some guy it's like 8-0 from Nigeria and he lives there, he's gonna say, "What do I need him for?"
Yeah,
it's common sense.
Okay.
Another shows in Accra, Ghana, and you got a white guy, he ain't gonna sell. So everything's relative.
If you're doing shows where?
If you're doing shows in Accra, Ghana, a white guy's not gonna sell.
Afrigada?
Yeah, Accra, Ghana. Correct.
Okay.
No.
Okay, so Troy, whenever you're not speaking, Troy, just mute yourself. I'll mute you, yeah? Whenever you want to speak, just unmute yourself because I can hear a little bit of background rustling. Okay.
Yeah, that's me. I constantly move, but I did have a question for Rick, right?
Yeah, go get it in.
Right, right. You know, how many years has it been since, Heyman actually left with all those fighters? And, as far as his company, where does it stand when you compare it to the top ranks of the world
The
and
answer is
the Golden Boys?
the original question. The answer is 2014. They had the big blowout, and in
Right.
March of 2015 is when PBC physically launched their first show. They announced their first show back in, I think, November of that year, and March by the time it got off the ground. As far as operating, on television as an event company. Before that, it was just getting their act together. What was the next question you had, Troy?
Right, right, right. Where do they stand, when you compare them to, like, say, a top rank or a Golden Boy? This is the PBC I'm talking about. And also, where does, what's it, TMT stand? What are they doing?
Well, so far, Mayweather has proven just to be itself. Mayweather, TMT, meaning the money team, Mayweather Promotions, has so far just been a tentacle of PBC, a tentacle of Al Heyman. It has never done a show other than that, except for little off-TV club shows at Sam's Town Casino in Las Vegas. So basically, there with Heyman. Okay, as far as where PBC stands as a whole, and I'm going to call PBC, no matter what a judge tells me, PBC is a promoter. Okay, they're dwelling out the money to the licensed promoters. They're securing the dates. They're securing the sites. They are securing the TV revenues. They are the promoter. They may not have the license, and they may use a licensed promoter to do all the legwork and be the front person. But in reality, they are the promoter. Where do they stand? Okay, here's where they stand. I'll give you some startling statistics. Okay, they've lost $550 million of Whiteout Reed's money, and that's in the SEC filings that the Whiteout Reed's done in the first 30 months. In the last 30 months, with this TV deal from Fox, they've yet to turn a corporate profit. Now, I'm not saying to you that Al Heyman personally, with his pieces of the fighters, is not benefiting. I'm saying to you, as a corporate entity, PBC has not turned a profit. They've lost overall, and since March of 2005, they've lost $550 million and have yet to turn a profit. Okay, they're actually down a little in the last 30 months, but not a lot. Now, how many, as far as volume goes? They did 32 shows last year. Top Rank did 66 shows last year. Okay, so Top Rank is over twice as big as they are in volume, number one. Okay, Eddie Hearn did approximately 38 shows, and Oscar did approximately 20 shows. Okay, to give you an idea. As far as having champions, Bob Arum, Top Rank, has 16 current world champions. Okay, I don't count interim champions as world champs. Regular champions and super champions are world champions. Okay, so they've got 16 world champions. PBC's got 14, and Eddie Hearn's got 13, and Oscar's got 6. Everybody else has like 1 or 2 apiece around the world, if they have any at all. Mr. Honda in Japan has several world champions. He would probably be the next one after. He's probably got 3 or 4 world champions right now, maybe 3. Tekin Promotions and Mr. Honda.
Okay. Okay. So next,
Reverend,
I got it.
Reverend, coming up here.
Next question, Rick. How do you feel about pensions for fighters when they retire from boxing? Not all fighters walk away with millions. Should pensions be introduced to protect them? We spoke about this before a few episodes ago, Rick, but carry on.
100% they should. Okay, they should take. I've always said this. They should take 10% out of their pay, right off the top. In other words, forget about taxes. because you know, if it goes into a pension, you don't get taxed on that money. You take 10% off the top, okay, in America, and let's say it's $1 million fight, they have 100,000. If they retire in 10 years, just that 100,000 turns into 200,000, okay, with the interest. So now, if a guy has, let's just say, 6 fights in his career, okay, and he averages $1.5 million, you know, big fights, and he averages $1.5 million a fight, and they're taking 150,000 out times 6, okay, in round figures, that's 900,000. If you multiply that by double over 10 years, and at the end of his career, you get $1.8 million. At that point in time, you let that money sit there, that man can make approximately $40,000 to $50,000 a year just in interest. Okay, just on his $1 million. And so, you know, and then if he has a real long career and even more profitable, figure it out. I mean, it's a lot more than that. So they should absolutely do something about that. I think they're putting too much money, and these kids are uneducated. Okay, they're not educated. Okay, there's too many sharks around them, as a general rule. Okay, and too many people calling them up a harebrained. I want to start a bar. I want to start a car wash. I want to start this. I want to start that. Okay, and then they're giving out money. Then they're broke at the end of their career. Iran Barkley's a good example of that. Okay, a great example of that. So what they need to do is they need to the state boxing commission needs to get a financial counselor, like a company like Lincoln Financial in New Jersey does the IBF pension fund. That's what they need to do, something like that, and just take the money right off the top. Anybody that makes $10,000 or more in a fight, they should have to take 10% out right off the top.
Yes.
Period.
Yes, 100%. 100%. Eddie Hearn, I know you listen to the show sometimes, so please pay heed to the words of Rick Glaser. I mean, Harold Bomber Graham, a British guy. He has the story of, he's been interviewed once and they said, well, you know, talk to us about money. What about the money? He says, well, you know, you make a lot of money, but you give a lot of money out. You know, you have a lot of friends around, a lot of friends who want to just lend some money. And they're around when they want to lend the money, but when it comes time to pay the money back, they are nowhere to be found. It's an age-old thing with sportsmen. One story that saddens my heart is the story of Matthew Saad Muhammad. He came into boxing homeless, made some money, and then when he left boxing, he was homeless again.
Absolutely. Very great fight, all-time great fighter, Hall of Famer, legendary fighter, largely forgotten today. And I'm glad you mentioned his name. Largely forgotten, but a great fighter, a great asset to boxing. Made some of the most thrilling fights. As I said, he was Arturo Gatti in New Jersey before Arturo Gatti was Arturo Gatti.
100%. 100%. For those who don't know, for the young'uns who don't know Matthew Saad Muhammad, go look up his greatest hits. I didn't like him defensively, but he was one hell of a fighter. One hell of a fighter. Okay, next question. Chase Athletics in the building. Thoughts on Spong under Coach Diaz, Mundo Boxing Gym?
He's not going anywhere. He's going nowhere. Pedro Diaz, I have no respect for at all. You know, that whole operation's going nowhere. You know, and especially Sprong. Sprong isn't much. You know, very limited.
Yeah,
very, very limited. You know, I know Sprong's manager is an attorney in West Palm Beach, Florida. That operation's going nowhere fast, speeding to oblivion.
LFA, is Robert Garcia a good trainer, manager?
Robert Garcia, you mean Mikey Garcia's brother?
Robert Garcia. Who's Robert Garcia? Isn't he the guy you
Robert Garcia, Mikey Garcia's brother. Yes, excellent trainer. very knowledgeable manager type, all-around boxing guy, a fantastic trainer, top of the line.
Fantastic trainer is Robert Garcia. Do you know the UFC guy Francis Ngannou, and can he be a good boxer?
Not a prayer.
I agree. It's too stiff. Ngannou is simply too stiff. Troy Graham, what are you saying, mate?
I was gonna ask Rick. I have to break this mess in for tomorrow, but I gotta ask Rick.
Not a prayer.
Why isn't it that most of these boxing promoters are not working with Cooney to get this pension plan situation off the ground for boxers?
You know what? You want to know the truth? Most fighters broke, so they're desperate to take fights. So they can get them for less money their next fight. So they got them pinned against the wall. Oh, they got to borrow money from them. You owe me $50,000. I'll just take that. I'll wipe that out. Sign the contract for $500,000 instead of $750,000. It allows the promoters and advisors and agents to control the fighters more. That's the reason why. That's my.
Okay. Why do you think he's having so many issues actually getting, I guess, funding for it? He's been doing this for a while, right, Cooney?
I don't know if he's still doing it or not. He was trying to do it for a while, but he's got money. He's the wrong example.
Are we talking about? Are we talking about Jerry Cooney, the boxer, the ex-boxer?
He has old money. He has old money from fighting Holmes and Spinks and all that, right?
So what is he? Is he set up some organization or something, Troy? What are you saying? Is he?
Yeah, Fist, right?
For boxers, but the boxers aren't jumping in. The promoters aren't cooperating. It never really got off the ground to the extent that anybody thought it would. That he thought it would, I should say. Let me say one thing to you. Okay, Jerry got $1 million apiece, and this is in 1980-81 to fight Ron Lyle and Tim Norton. He got $10 million to fight Holmes. He got huge money, millions and millions to fight Spinks. I can't remember what the figure was, but I know it was over $5 million, and I know he got over $5 million to fight Foreman. So, and at that point in time, after the fight with Foreman, with Holmes, he never had a manager again. So let me run this by you guys. I think, and he really, except for a little drinking, he's really never, and everybody drinks a little. He doesn't have any bad habits. He's not a womanizer. Jerry's got some money. He's not a brokester. That's for sure.
It's always good to hear when the sensible ones take their money and keep it safely tucked away. Reverend Pickles says,
I love that name.
Reverend Pickles says Tyrone, I think he means Tyrone Spong versus Cassius Chaney would be a tasty fight in the US of A.
Who'd watch it? No, neither has a fan base. Is it a good fight? It's fun. Chaney knocks him dead. SSB in the building. Reverend Pickles, Chase Athletics, El Jefe. Where's Red Glove Militant?
I don't know where the hell Red Glove Militant is. Red Glove Militant is absent without leave. What they call it, AWOL. AWOL, absent without leave. He needs to check in. He needs to check in at the I don't know, checking at the checkout point, checkpoint Charlie. Let us know his whereabouts. Okay, let's go to the next question. Behind every beautiful woman is a beautiful behind, says BH, and I cannot disagree with that. There's no flaw.
That's not true. That's not true.
It's 100% true. I'm not going to try and get Rick into trouble. He's frozen there. Okay, he's unfrozen now. Okay, so next question. Who's rustling? Is that you? Is that you rustling, Troy? Okay. Next question. Who's that who's rustling? Is that you? Is that you, Rick? I think somebody's rustling. It ain't me. Anyway.
I can't hear you guys all of a sudden.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Can you hear me now? 1 2 1 2.
It's real faint.
1 2 1 2. Okay, hold on a second. Can everybody hear me in the chat? Can everybody hear me in the chat? Let me know.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me, Rick, or no?
I can barely hear you.
You can barely hear me. I'll need a response from the people in the chat, but it takes around 10 seconds, 15 seconds for me to see what they wrote in. Can you hear me, Troy? Troy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I hear you fine.
Loud and clear. Okay.
Yeah.
James says loud and clear. Unbiased says loud and clear. Ricky, you still having difficulty hearing me?
Yes. I can hear you, but it's so faint, it's incredible.
Okay, so if you drop off and then come back in on the same link, can you do that?
It'll work.
Yep.
Let me put the link in again. Let me put the link in again. Troy's breaking in the mask for tomorrow.
Yeah, because these filters usually give me a headache, but this one works fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to drive that truck with this, and when you go in the supermarkets and stuff, you have to wear a mask, you know?
Yeah, 100%. So the link's in the chat for Rick.
You know, once he comes back, I want to ask him, how come more fighters didn't go the route of a Bernard Hopkins?
Save the question for when he jumps back in. Save the question for when he jumps back in. Keep it as a surprise.
Right.
1 2 1 2. You hear me perfect now? Okay, let me just do a few shout outs and then Troy's got a question. We got James Jameson, YG Knight, Samuel Shaw, Unbiased or Biased Boxing are some of the people who have just recently joined us. And of course, Reverend Pickles, Shizbiz, BH are up in the building. Troy.
Right, Rick. Arlee's got a question here. What do you think of Michael Collins' potential? Excellent potential. Huge, going to be a huge ticket seller. It already is in New York City. It will be in Ireland. And he's got really good potential. He can be a champion and be a champion for quite a few years.
Okay, Troy, hang fire for a couple of seconds. Let me just get a couple of quick fire questions in. What does this say? Does the Ali Act really work in the USA? That's from Shizbiz.
It does to a certain extent. Where it does is it keeps a promoter from being a manager and a manager from being a promoter. So it works in that regard. It works in that regard. But it's never been tested in a court of law. The FBI has never gone after anybody, or the U.S. Attorney's Office never gone anybody for a violation of the Ali Act yet. So who knows if it really does work in that regard? Does it have any teeth? I don't know about that. But so far, it started in 1997, and so far it's been relatively decent without getting too carried away.
So hold on, nobody's been prosecuted under the Ali Act?
No.
Wow. Hold on, Troy. Let me just bang out a few of these questions. Who are the head honchos at PBC other than Heyman?
There is none.
Damn.
It's a one-man band. I mean, Tim Smith is, quote, the vice president of communications. The latrine orderly's got more juice than Tim Smith. Everybody's taking orders from Heyman. Nobody can think for themselves or is allowed to think for themselves over there. They're all lackeys of Heyman. There's no brain power there. Like you take Top Rank, they have a corporate structure. They have Bob's the chairman. His stepson Todd is the president of Top Rank. They've got chief operating officers. They've got all kinds of. They got 7 corporate officers over there to give you an idea, and they can all make decisions. So there's your answer right there.
Okay, so let me bang out a few more before I go to Troy. Okay, I got one for you, very random, off the top of the dome. Whatever happened to Butch Lewis?
He died.
Oh, well, that answers that one. but did that R.I.P. Butch? But did that come sometime after he left the game? Because it seemed like he was in the game and then he disappeared out of the game.
He got left the game. He did a deal with Robert Johnson, who had owned BET, and he only started a production company, and they were producing. They were the production arm for events for BET. So he was doing well when he passed away. He had
that's good.
He died instantly at a heart attack, actually.
Wow, damn, no second chances. Woo. Okay, so Troy, why don't you come in with your question, my friend?
Rick, I was going to ask you, back to what fighters are making and so forth. Why haven't most fighters gone the route of a Bernard Hopkins and just taking control of their self like they are the business? Because they are the business, correct?
How did Bernard Hopkins take control of his own career?
Wasn't he self-managed and he didn't have a promoter? He kind of did it on a fight-to-fight basis?
He always had a promoter. He had Don King for a while. He had America Presents. He had Golden Boy. He always had a promoter.
I always read that he did it on a fight-to-fight basis with King, and King hated working with him because he was the most stubbornest man in the world, and he read everything. He dotted every I, he crossed all the T's, and he never made any mistakes.
He used Arnold Joseph as his attorney.
Right.
Okay. Two is he always had a promoter. I don't remember him not having a promoter. Lou DiBella promoted him for a while. They ended up suing. He ended up suing Bernard, and Bernard had to pay him, I don't know, $600,000, $500,000 out of the judge ordered him to pay DiBella $500,000, $600,000. I can't remember what the exact figure was. He's always had a promoter. I don't know what you're referring
about
to.
About a manager. He was self-managed, right?
Arnold Joseph, the lawyer, acted as the manager, but did he make his own decisions? Yes, he did, 100%.
Yes, he did.
So
yeah, because I always wondered why fighters didn't go more to the way of Ray Robinson or Bernard Hopkins, or just carry themselves as a business. Because if you take the boxer out of the business, you have no business.
Well, the problem is the bigger promoters don't need a particular fighter. If Terrence Crawford decided not to fight anymore, do you think Bob Arum's going to miss a meal?
No, but I'm saying if boxers on a whole decided, okay, I am the business, I am boxing, and handle themselves like a business instead of saying that we need everybody else, wouldn't that benefit them a little bit more?
Oh, because if you get too independent, the promoter sits you on the sideline and puts you in the doghouse. So it doesn't work like that. Certain fighters can get away with that. In other words, when Oscar was fighting, he was so big. Bernard was never that big that he could do that.
Did Sugar Ray Leonard do what Troy's speaking about?
Yes, he did. But he had a manager, Mike Trainer.
The Mike Trainer, his lawyer, right?
Well, the lawyer was the manager. The lawyer put money up for him.
Okay.
Right.
So the lawyer acted as almost like a promoter in a sense, or no?
Yes. Promoter and manager. Yes. Before the Ali Act. Correct.
Before the excellente. Because I remember Sugar Ray Leonard was speaking disparagingly of Marvin Hagler, saying when I approached him, I said, "Yo, we can do this ourselves. We can do this for ourselves." And he said, "I'm happy with the cut that I'm getting." Well,
he only made $19 million for the Ray Leonard fight back in 1987, April of '87. So if you multiply that times today, that would be $57 million. It's not too bad.
Whose cut was that? Whose cut was that?
Marvin's head cut was $19 million.
And that's before taxes, right?
Oh, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's good to know. Ask Rick what he feels about what you got against Rick against Demetrius Andrade, Rick. What he got against Demetrius Andrade? Isn't he one of the best? Isn't he one of the best right now?
He's a excellent player, but why would anybody watch him? He's boring. He fights the Luke Keelers of the world, and there's no excitement there. There's nothing that makes me know that Demetrius Andrade's fighting that night. You wake up in the morning and you say, "Oh, I can't wait till tonight to see Demetrius Andrade fight." That'll never happen. Unless they have a financial interest in the fight or fighting, because either they bet on him or they have a piece of him or his family. So nobody cares. Nobody.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay. So Shizbiz asks, what do you think of the franchise status, the WBC franchise guys?
I don't like it. I don't think I think it's a ridiculous thing. Jose Suleiman was a friend of mine. We spent time together many times over dinner, lunch, over the years with our other mutual friend Don Majeski. I love Jose. I thought he was a great man. I really like his son Mauricio, but not everything that the human being does is right, and I don't think that's right. I think that they should have had another provision where he doesn't have to fight as mandatory for every 1.5 for every 18 months instead of every year. If you are winning, or if you declare a guy the champion as a franchise, then they should have an eliminator between number 1 and number 2 automatically to fight for the title, so you get the best guy fighting for the title.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
That's what they should have done, for sure.
Absolutely. I would like a fighters union with regards to pensions. Little Jimmy Wild did something similar to protect pay. The chairman of fighters pensions should be somebody who is highly respected.
Well, I don't agree with unions. I'm anti-union, but we do need a pension. Let's not confuse. Don't confound union with pensions. There's no correlation. Some unions have pensions, don't get me wrong, but to have a pension, you don't need a union.
Yeah. Kenny Norton was a great boxer in a great era.
Not a great chin, choked in some of against big punchers, Ernie Shavers, George Foreman, but gave Ali 3 incredible fights. I actually thought that he could have gotten all 3 decisions in the Ali fights. It was that close. The second 2 fights, he clearly won the first one. Was a great fighter and in the top of his game. Larry Holmes and Ken Norton was probably one of the great 3 or 4 great heavyweight fights of all time. And round 15 was sensational, just like the round 12 in Fury, in the first Wilder Fury fight was sensational. Round 12, well, round 15 in that fight was sensational.
It was crazy.
And the fight came down to the 15th round. It was dead even going into the 15th. Woo. So Kenny gave it all he could, and he didn't get the nod. I thought Holmes did win the last round, but Kenny Norton was a great fighter, didn't have a great chin, and choked when he fought with great punchers. But he was a great asset to boxing. He was great with the fans, and people honestly, sincerely liked him and would pay to watch him.
It was a shame. It was a shame he got a little bit shy against the heaviest hitters.
Right.
Got a little bit shy. I think you want to say something, Troy.
Yes, sir. I have a question for you, Rick, because I always hear this and it irritates me, right? The guy that's on the top, let's say the number 1 guy, the champion, will say, I'm not going to fight this guy because he's high risk and low value, right? Then they'll take a lesser fight and lose that for less money. What is the point of that? I'll give you a perfect example. The Mike McCollum. Hagler didn't fight him. Ray didn't fight him. Tommy didn't fight him. Duran could have fought him, but he fought Hearns instead. How do you get around that in boxing? What is the purpose if you lose to the lesser guy for less money? Perfect example of that is Wilder versus Fury instead of Wilder versus Joshua.
Let me explain. Okay. Mike McCallum was all risk and no reward. He didn't bring an additional dollar in. He was from a small country, Jamaica, I believe. And,
Yes, my country. Yeah.
Right, but there's not a lot of money there, and for TV rights, for television rights, it's a small country, and it's not a wealthy country. It's not like it's Morocco or Monaco, and he was, when you had Duran, Leonard, Hearns, and Hagler, you had the four money makers. You had Benitez as like the fifth king. They call him the four kings, and maybe he was the fifth king. But he never. The reason why he's not the fifth king because he didn't fight Hagler. But the point is that they all fought each other because that's where the money was. Where did Mike McCallum fit into making any money for any of these guys? He brought nothing to the table, zero. And that's why he was left out of that loop of those fighters. That's the obvious. Okay, and there was no reason to fight him. He was a very good fighter, all-time great fighter in reality, but there was no money to fight him. Now, what was the next part of your question?
I said, what is the point then of fighting a lesser fighter and then you end up losing for less money and no prestige to help the fighter?
Who did that?
I can't point anybody out at the moment, but that's that.
And you just said Wilder. You said Wilder.
Yeah, Fury.
Here's what they were thinking. The brain trust behind Wilder, Al Heyman and Shelley Finkel. Shelley's been a great manager over many years, but he's 75 years old, and you don't think when you're 75 like you did when you're 50. Okay, Wilder, Heyman doesn't really know boxing. He's a hustler and a businessman. Okay, he's not a boxing guy. Okay, and in their infinite wisdom, they took a look at the two fights that Fury made in his comeback, and they saw that Fury wasn't much, and they took him, and he gave their guy a boxing lesson, and they called it a draw, and Fury actually won the fight. Then they had no choice but to do the rematch. Well, we saw what happened. Okay, they thought in their minds that they could beat Fury. That's why they did it. Okay, and he ended up getting a draw, and then he ended up losing. Remember, he lost for over $31 million between both fights. The first fight they had $3 million on the contract, but I'm sure he got $5-6 million anyways. So let's say he lost for over $31 million. Okay, he would have got $40 million to fight Joshua. He definitely would have got licked by Joshua. Okay. Definitely. So you have a situation where they thought they were going to beat Fury, and they didn't. Okay, so there you go. I mean, I knew they were dead in the rematch. I told everybody that whether it was on every single podcast, radio show, interview I did, Facebook, okay, Twitter, just a no-brainer. So, and it was a no-brainer. It didn't even take me to figure it out.
I thought Wilder was going to beat him. I thought Wilder was going to come back better in the second fight until the last.
Remember this: when you have no skills, you can only and no ring IQ, you can only get so much better. When you have skills and you have ring IQ, you can get a lot better because you're working with more. Mm-hmm. It's not the guy who you think can improve more because he's at a lower ab. Oh, he can go up more. No, it doesn't work like that. The guy with the brains makes the adjustment. That's why the smartest fighter always wins rematch.
Yeah.
Fire away.
Yeah. I gotta agree with that. I changed my pick in the last week. I changed my pick from Wilder to KO Fury. I changed that in the last week when I rewatched the first fight, and more specifically, I took notes from the 12th round after Fury got knocked down, and he came back and he started beating Wilder up after he just got knocked down. So that was very interesting to me. That's why I changed my pick. And another question from El Jefe. He says, name the top 5 promoters and also the top 5 pound-for-pound managers.
We already named the top 5. We already named the top promoters. They're in order. Top rank, I would say Eddie Hearn before PBC. I think PBC's 3rd. Oscar's 4th. Frank Warren would be 5th probably. And I would say Mr. Honda in Japan is 6th. Okay. I think those are the top. managers aren't what they were from years ago. There's some good managers out there today, but there's not a lot of them. Charlie Finkel's a good manager. Heyman can call him what himself he wants, manager, advisor, doesn't matter, schmuck, whatever he wants to call himself. Okay, he's on that list because of his TV connections, not because he knows a lot. Peter Kahn is a good manager. Dave McWhorter from New York City is a good manager. Frank Espinoza from California is a good manager. There's about 6 good managers out there. There's some good the Bauer brothers and Bauer's brothers in England, Mark Bauer and Anthony. They got Daniel Dubois. They're an excellent manager. As far as a management company, MTK is doing a good job for their clients. It looks like to me, MTK Global.
Yeah. So, okay. So my a question from me to you. It's going to be a broad question. I'm even just going to put it as a statement and let you respond. Criminals, and criminal organizations in boxing.
I don't understand what the question is.
Well, you don't. Okay. So, boxing and criminals, criminal organizations. That's the title. How would you respond to that?
Well, there's rumors about that there's a certain European promoter that has tentacles in organized crime in Europe, and a couple of them in Russia and the Ukraine, but I can't substantiate those rumors because I don't know enough about it. Put it this way: nobody's ever strong-armed me in boxing, so I don't really know. You know, I don't have the actual answer to that question, but there is one promoter in Europe. There's a couple in the Ukraine, and there's a bunch of them in the UK, in Russia. But I can't substantiate that because I don't know that to be a fact. But there, rumors abound. Let's put it that way to you.
Rumors abound. I'm not going to press Rick on that one. I'm going to do a little documentary.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, back to just the whole fighter thing and being in a position to do stuff. Dillian White, how does the WBC get him to wait 3 years for a title shot after he's done everything he's supposed to do?
Because Dillian White, because Eddie Hearn and Dillian White didn't have enough balls to go to court and put a stop to this. Put a stop to this. That's all they had to do. They fought eliminators. Then they fought eliminators. Mauricio Sulaiman said, "Well, they weren't final eliminators. Hold it. They paid a sanctioning fee. The winner, you fight an eliminator. The winner eliminator is supposed to be the mandatory. No, they got jerked off. Eddie didn't want to go up against the WBC because of long-term repercussions that he and his fighters would have with the WBC, and he didn't feel Dillian was worth a fight. That's what I look at because it was obvious. A blind man can see that.
Wow, and then the last one, I know back in the day, Don King seemed to run the WBC. Does he still have the Sulaiman family in his back pocket?
Well, I don't want to call it in the back pocket because Jose and now Mauricio is the type of guy that if you're nice to him and you do business with them on a regular basis and you promote their fights and you promote their organization, help promote their organization, you go to their conventions, they do a lot of nice things for you. It has nothing to do with paying anybody. In the back pocket indicates that somebody's bribing somebody, and that's not the case. So that's, Don doesn't have enough fighters to do that, to be that entrenched anymore with a particular. If Don was operating at full strength instead of having 3 or 4 fights, basically retired, semi-retired at best, Don would have that same great relationship with Mauricio Sulaiman as he did with his dad and the WBC. No question about it.
Top 5 ticket sellers. Top 5 ticket sellers in the US of A.
I would definitely say Canelo would have to be number 1. Jose Ramirez and Terrence Crawford would probably be tied for number 2. I would say Adam Konaki, even though he just got knocked out. But let's just say he didn't get knocked out, just based off his last fight in Brooklyn. He's a huge draw in Brooklyn, and as is Ramirez is in Jose Ramirez is in Fresno, and Terrence Crawford is in Omaha. I would say those are your seriously your biggest ticket sellers in America. I would say right now. I would say anybody else besides Michael Conlon in New York City at the he sells out every time he fights in New York at the High-Lou Theater, which is part of Madison Square Garden, the smaller building.
I got you. Okay,
James Jameson, was Bob Arum right about pay-per-view pricing in America? Yes and no. Okay, he's right because
first of all, we have to tell him what Al Heyman said. Al Heyman said Bob Arum said if PPV prices were halved, more people would buy them. You end up getting more PPV sales. Rick Glaser.
Correct. You would, obviously. But if you did 1 million buys, you'd have to get over 2 million to make it worthwhile. Okay, so because you've got to reach that many more people to do 2 million. So you have to have additional advertising dollars to do it. But yes, the answer is yes, you would. But would it be good for the promoter? If you're having the price, you'd have to do over 2 times. So I don't necessarily agree with what he said in a profit and loss situation. But as far as would you sell more pay-per-views? Absolutely. But is it beneficial to the promoter because you need over twice as many to turn a profit? I don't see that.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky strategy. I don't know. Maybe they reduce it down to 60 first. Maybe they experiment with 60 and see if they make up the shortfall. I think that would be the strategy. Or maybe they say, well, 60 is too risky. Let's just go 40. I don't know. But should they experiment with 40? Should they experiment with 40?
I'm not going to tell a brilliant guy like Bob Arum how to spend his money. I would tell a not so brilliant guy like Al Heyman how to spend his money because he hasn't done a good job of it. But Bob Arum, it's tough to say. I will say this to you. Bob will make a decision that makes sense for him and ESPN collectively, and he'll come to an ample decision going forward. I don't know what he's going to do. We'll see what he does do. The next time he does a pay-per-view is probably the best answer, and the results of that pay-per-view. So we'll go from there.
Yeah, we will. What's going on here? What's going on here? The franchise is an absolute farce. What does this say? Who do you favor at 154, Charlo or Jason Rosario?
You know what? It's one of those kind of fights. Whoever hits who on the chin. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a tough fight. I thought Charlo would be a better fighter than he is, but he's more or less turned out to be a little bit of a fraud. The other brother, the 60-pounder, he is a fraud. He won't fight anybody. If it's not so, it's unbelievable. Real fighters ask this: how much am I getting? What's the date? Where it is? Okay, and when's the press conference? Okay, when you start asking who's got the guy, who's the trainer, who's the manager, where does he train? That's a scared fighter.
Yeah. We move on. What does this one say? From Uncle Burnt Apostrophe. On Finkel, have you found him a fair and ethical practitioner of the sport? Because you hear some stories, Briggs and his personality seems a little bit suspect. Finkel.
Let me put it this way to you, okay? If I had a son, I would not allow Shelly Finkel to be his manager. I'll leave it like that. I think that says a.
Damn. But he's got some people he managed some people at the top though. Didn't he have
No. I'm talking about integrity.
Oh.
I'll leave it with that.
Okay.
How about if I reword it and say maybe Shannon Briggs wasn't wrong?
Yeah. Well, let's stay on Shannon Briggs for a second. let's stay on Shannon Briggs for a second, because Shannon Briggs on the Joe Rogan podcast a couple of years ago, he said something that piqued my interest. He didn't really spell it out, but he alluded to the fact that, holy hell, Teddy Atlas, his name almost escaped me, that Teddy Atlas, in his training style, in his manner and demeanor, wasn't particularly nurturing, shall we say. Have you heard anything in that vein?
Listen, I think Teddy's fantastic for boxing. Okay, the sport as a whole. He's a great representation of boxing. He's super knowledgeable, and he's an excellent trainer. Okay, he's in the Hall of Fame as an observer, not as a trainer, but that doesn't mean he's not a great trainer. Observer as far as being an announcer and a great representation of boxing. But they didn't. Their personalities clashed, and they didn't get along. Shannon has a way of supposed to be at the gym at 12 o'clock, and he shows up. I love Shannon, but he shows up at 2 o'clock like nothing's wrong. When the trainer allots 2.5 hours of his time for the guy, and he's ready to leave at 2:30, and he walks in at 2 o'clock. Hey, what's going on? Like everything's all right. No, you're 2 hours late. So that's just the way. That's a clash of personalities and the clash of the way that they each conduct themselves. Yeah. Teddy Atlas tells you he's going to be there at 12 o'clock. He's there at 11:45. Mm-hmm. Okay, Shannon tells you 2 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, he's there at 2. So that's not a good mix.
I got you. Ask Rick, is there any truth about Floyd coming back and fighting again?
Well, he's denied it, but I know better from multiple sources, and as far as I know, he's coming back. He's not announcing it now because he doesn't want to announce a fight where there's no crowd, because obviously if Floyd comes back, there'll be a big crowd. So he doesn't want to fight without a crowd because he won't make nearly as much money. So he's waiting to get the crowds back. But I don't see him fighting any of the top guys. Broner, somebody like that. He's not fighting the top guys. Everybody can forget that idea.
White didn't fight final eliminators when offered until Rivas. White has only been Mando since then, not 3 years.
That's all bullshit. He fought eliminators. They were called eliminators, but then Suleiman said, no, they weren't final eliminators. Well, what? When you tell a guy it's an eliminator, it's an eliminator. You then put final on the original paperwork, or don't, or specify. You never specified. It's bullshit. Okay. White warranted the title shot. Look at the guys he's beaten. Everybody in boxing except had never had the chance to fight Wilder ever since he lost to Joshua. And now that you look back upon it, how good Joshua is and how good he's been, it makes White even a better fighter because he gave him a hell of a fight.
He gave him a hell of a fight. One hell of a fight.
I say he beats him, to be honest with you.
Who beat who?
I say White can beat him.
Beat who?
Beat Joshua. Fury, yeah.
They already fought.
Yeah, well, sparring, right?
No, they fought.
Who we talking about?
No, White, Josh. Oh, yeah. But that was when they were both coming up, Rick. That was when both of them have matured since then.
No,
both of them have matured.
Let's put it this way: the public's not asking for a rematch. Nobody's ever asked for a rematch of that fight.
Right. And he felt he was being lowballed for $4 million, so he didn't take the fight. Because I think he just made $5 million fighting Chizorov. So why would he take $4 million to fight Joshua? That was the way he felt.
It's called opportunity.
I understand. Why was he only offered $4 million if he just made $5 fighting a non?
That's a personal issue between Eddie and White. I don't know what the reason why Eddie was doing it. Probably because he has to pay Joshua a ridiculous amount of money. It's probably the reason.
Right. At the time, he didn't want to fight, which would have been huge. Both of them coming off big wins and everything.
Listen, All I know is he should have been the mandatory. That's all. That was one of the. That was a great injustice.
I believe it was.
But if you look at it,
injustice. I believe it was a great injustice. I think White did more than enough.
Who's the most protected boxer you've ever seen? I think we answered that question several times over the last 5 weeks, and it would obviously be Wilder.
Right. And if you look at it, Rick, the same thing that Wilder did to White is what he did to Hardcore Mansour. He beat all his all his eliminators and so forth, right? And Wilder never fought him.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
Hardcore Mansour, the heavyweight, and Deontay Wilder. We were on White.
He was never mandatory.
Yeah, yes, Rick. He won all his title eliminators. This is Mansour we're talking about now. He won all his eliminators.
What fighter?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, what fighter?
Mahmoud. What are you talking about?
No. Hardcore Mansour.
You mean the guy from Delaware? No, he was never that highly. No, was never that rated highly by the BC. He was like number 5 or 6 for a little while there. No, he was never ever.
But he won all his title eliminators. Yeah, but the point is that Wilder doesn't fight punchers. In his whole career, he never fought a puncher.
Okay.
He fought Ortiz, who can punch, but he's not a puncher, meaning he's not going to take you out one punch.
Right.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
I don't,
Brazil should have been the mandatory. Well, no shit.
How the hell did he get to mandatory again? He fought an eliminator, and they said that after the event, they said he's now the mandatory.
Yeah, it's a fraud. It's a fraud.
It was a fraud. Should have been Dillian White, easily, hands down. Who wins, Josh Taylor or Jose Ramirez? Damn, who knows?
Anything can happen in that fight. I like Ramirez because he's nonstop and he keeps coming all the time, and he's a high pressure guy, and he'll outland the other guy. He'll throw more and outland. But it's an unbelievable fight. It's a pick'em fight. It's too hard to figure. It's two excellent fighters. Let's put it that way to you. With, by the way, contrasting different styles. So it's an interesting fight, no question. But also Taylor can be pretty slick at times and then sloppy. So I don't know. You can be slick, but it can be sloppy, and you can't say Ramirez has got that amateur pedigree, as does Taylor. It's an excellent fight. Ask Rick what is holding up the Spencer Crawford fight. Is it politics? Well, first of all, it's 3 things. It's called the number 1 obstructionist in boxing, Al Heyman, who stopped it for the last few years, is number 1. Spence himself, number 2. Number 3, the car accident, which goes back to Spence himself. So all 4 of those things right there.
All 4 of those factors. Will Ramirez versus Victor Postal be competitive or one-sided?
Well, I don't think Victor Postal can be in a bad fight, but how do I see the fight? I think it's a 117, 111 fight, 118, 110, something like that. I don't see it's going to be a nip and tuck fight. I think Ramirez is going uphill still, and I think the other guy's going downhill.
Yes. Big Boys Boxing asks, if Mike Tyson does do an exhibition fight, who would you like to see as the opponent?
Well, when it's an exhibition, there's no opponent. Okay, it's your expedition mate. Okay, it's not really an opponent. Okay, who would be the opposition? I don't know. You'd really have to just get somebody that's not a puncher who literally stands in front of Mike. And there's quite a few of those out there. Eric Molina would be a good possibility. Somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Eric Molina versus Breezel wasn't supposed to be in the title eliminator. Ortiz and Povetkin got dirty, so Stavern versus Wilder happened instead. Breezel was supposed to Stavern fight Stavern, but instead fought Wilder.
How could you call Molina and Brazil an eliminator?
Yeah, crazy.
Please.
Crazy. Rigged. That was bad. That was bad. Bad. What did you say, Troy?
Yeah, to be honest with you, just for the sheer back and forth, the talk they would do, I want to see Tyson fight Tony. I just want to hear them talk. I just want to hear the talk alone, you know, the back and forth with them.
That might be interesting, actually.
Yeah.
That might be interesting. Yeah, Exactamundo. Teddy seems to be mellowing over the last few years. Thank you to Mauricio for rigging the whole damn thing. Great fight. I don't want Iron Mike to have a real fight. Just let it be.
Listen, I got 5 minutes to go on the show.
That's it. We don't need 5 minutes because that was the last point right there. But we're gonna go with the good nights. We're gonna go with the good nights. I'd like to thank everybody for jumping in, for jumping on. You have been in tune to Boxing Talk with Raphie. I think this is 123. Special guest joined by Rick Glaser. It's been another good one. Rick.
All right, I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, same place, same time, my friend. Same place, same time.
Thanks, everybody. And Raph, put this on my Facebook wall.
I will.
And, hanging on my.
I'll send it to your Twitter and your Facebook.
You're a good man, Troy. Thank you very much for joining us today. You're another quality guy. Stay safe in Baltimore.
Yes, sir.
Troy,
see this.
Raphie, you stay safe over there and on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Will do. And you stay safe. Yeah.
My mother once told me that I had a face for radio.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to include you in that list.
I actually had a good question for you, but you said you had to go.
Rick, so. Hey, Rick, I'm much better looking in real life, my friend.
That's good. That's fantastic, a matter of fact.
I actually had a good one for you, but you said you got to go, Rick. So, I'll catch you next time with the question.
Real quick. Last one. Fire away.
Real quick. Adrian Broner telling the PBC he wants $10 million to fight, or else he's going to take his talents elsewhere.
No, nobody wants him anymore. Listen, paying Broner is like buying yourself aggravation. Why would somebody do that? Right? Good point, right?
I don't know. What was the question? What did you say?
I said he said about Broner, about the 10 million, would he go elsewhere? I says, why would anybody want to buy aggravation and pay too much for it? He's just aggravation. He can't beat anybody. He doesn't make good fights. He doesn't throw good punches. He's got a foul mouth and he's not good. Fox doesn't even want him on TV. That's why he's on Showtime. The executive at Fox, so they don't want him. He's too trashy.
But who's paying Broner 10 million for what? In what?
Nobody. He's trying to get 10 million. He's screaming over social media that he wants $10 million to fight his next fight. They're talking about the Floyd fight. He ain't getting 10 million.
He ain't getting 10 million. He ain't getting 10 million.
He'll get at the max 3 million, maybe 2.5. And he owes. I understand he owes Heyman money. Rumors abound he owes Heyman money, so that's why Heyman's pushing him into the fight so Heyman can get his money back. Okay, hold on. Respect to you, Rick. Respect to you all for taking the time.
Taking the time for boxing. Great channel, says Reverend Pickles. And with that, And with that, Rick Glaser freezes up. He's frozen. It's frozen. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the show. That was Boxing Talk with Raphie with Rick Glaser. Oh, damn. Rick didn't want to go out like that. Rick didn't want to go out like that. That's not Rick. Now we got two Rick. Rick. Yeah.
Next week. Okay, guys?
Next week, same place, same time, Rick. Been great having you.
And all, listen, everybody that's asking questions today that didn't get a chance to get their question in, save your question for next week. And if you ask questions today, you got your questions, think of more for next week, because we got more answers here. Okay?
We've got more answers for you with the help of Rick Glaser. This is the place to be. Rick Glaser, much appreciation. Thanks goes out to you. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you again during the week. Thanks,
guys. Bye now.
That was Rick Glaser. That was Rick Glaser. And great show, guys. Peace out to everybody. But you know, I just remembered something. Might as well bring it up now. Let me just share my screen with you. I just remembered this. This was on the list, but you guys came up with so many great questions. I didn't even have to go to my bag of tricks. Can you even see that? Can you see that? Let me make it bigger. Okay, hold on. No, I got a better idea. I already got the article up. So that's the Twitter that you're watching now. Who was that from? Oh, who's that guy? Okay, so there's the Twitter story. The Pola Arena in Pula, Croatia, is interested in hosting the heavyweight fight between Anthony Joshua and Kubrat Pulev. So that is the headline. Let me go ahead and share the article with you as we bring this thing to a close.
Yes, sir.
Let's go ahead with that then. And let's make the screen bigger. Let's do this. We have the technology. This is Raphael Dawkins Combat Radio. If you have not yet subscribed but enjoy the content, then please kindly do so. If you enjoyed the show, then by all means, absolutely hit that like button. And if you're on Twitter, feel free to go ahead to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget the PayPal button is in the description box. And the super chat button is right by where you're writing in right now. All of those means are a means to support the channel and keep on bringing you content like this. And okay, so our final story. So Croatia is interested in hosting Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev. Okay, let's take down there's a comment there that I forgot was up there. Let's take that down and share the story. Let's take it up one notch bigger. Okay, I think that might be it. Okay, so add the Pula Arena in Pula, Croatia to the list of venues interested in hosting the heavyweight bout between unified world title holder Anthony Joshua and the challenger Kubrat Pulev. We have a very solid offer. CEO of Epic Sports and Entertainment said. This guy also I value Gotsev. Just call him Gotsev. I gotcha. Who represents Pulev told ESPN, we are respecting Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn's position, and so he's doing his thing out there in the Middle East. He's exploring that. That sentence is kind of weird. We all agreed to work up to the best offer, which does not include London, if they change the rules. So far, it doesn't look very positive to do it as originally planned. What the hell is this? Is all garbled. This is all garbled. Hearn, the head of Matchroom, had originally scheduled a bout for June 20th at Tottenham Hotspur, but the event was cancelled due to the COVID virus epidemic. We'll listen to all the offers that come in from all around the world. Hearn told ESPN the preference for the fight and AJ's sole desire for this fight is for it to take place in the UK. Now I'm not a big fan of AJ boxing behind closed doors personally. Even if it's a smaller crowd, it's something we may have to consider. There have been a number of countries that have reached out and offered to stage the fight. Croatia is one that has come from the Pulev side. Goes on to say Hearn has received half a dozen inquiries about the fight from venues in various countries from around the world. Hearn goes on to say we'll definitely explore options of where the fight should take place. We still want to exhaust the UK first as our primary option, but we definitely are also considering the other venue options because he has to fight. I'm not prepared for him not to fight in 2020, so he's got to fight in 2020. That would be a whole year of his career that he didn't fight. Ultimately, we will review all the offers we have received, and AJ will make the decision. The Pula Arena is an amphitheater that was built during the Roman Emperor. Gatsev said it has some terrific history. That's where the real gladiators fought. That's interesting. An amphitheater fighting in an amphitheater that was built during the Roman Empire. Wow, that sounds highly impressive. But I don't know. Troy, what do you make of this? What do you make of this offer from Croatia?
Well, it tells you the power of this young Yoruba brother here, man. That countries just want to see him fight, because I doubt Pulev is who they really want to see fight. They just want to see him, and Pulev, of course, but mainly him. It just tells you how much power he really does have, and how you actually build a fighter to be a brand instead of just building him to be.
100%, 100%. Shows the power, shows the attraction, shows the pulling power that is Anthony Joshua. Can't see it happening over there, but you never know what, he's got to get a fight. If this lockdown carries on for too much longer, too much deeper, goes into the winter, then who knows what the possibilities will be. It's covering the news over here. It's another angle. It's another option. It's another potential reality. Okay. And so there's nothing else to say.
Something. This fight is not going to get made because the Fury Joshua fight will supersede anything. Money supersedes anything.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of another one. It's 1, 2, 3. Boxing Talk with Raphie, 123. Special guest was Rick Glaser. Came through for us again, keeping us entertained with knowledge in the COVID era every Wednesday, 9 p.m. UK time over here on Boxing Talk with Raphie. And thanks goes out to everybody in the chat for joining us. Smash all those buttons, all the good ones. And thanks also goes out to Troy Graham, testing out, breaking in his COVID defender is going to need for tomorrow. Troy Graham, thank you very much for jumping on. Your final Your final words, sir. Your final words.
Good show, man. Good show. And there again, another phone call. Good show, good show, brother. In time, we stay on the path, or it'll go where you want it to go, right?
100%. No messing around. Keep grinding. Keep grinding. Keep smiling. That's what we're saying over here. And thank you, Troy. And I'll speak to you during the week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that was Troy Graham. Thanks goes out to Troy Graham. And then there was one, and that was me. And he is I, Raphael Dawkins, bringing you the good news and the bad news. We're chopping it up over here with a man like Rick Glaser, man like Troy Graham, and men and women like you. Much appreciated. Thanks for everybody coming onto the show. And of course, it's Boxing Talk with Raphie Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 9 p.m. UK time. And what else is there left for me to say? Other than it's the like, it's the subscribe, it's the comments, it's the shares. And it is the hitting the bell icon to stay updated with news and notifications. And don't forget about the live show. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to smash that like button. It's the Reverend Pickles. It's the IBT Immortal Boxing. It's the James Jameson. It's the Chase Athletics. It's the Philip Carl Roberts. It's the Samuel Shaw. It's the Big Boys Boxing. It's the BH. It's the R. Lee. It's the Reverend Pickles. And many, many more. Like Unbiased Boxing. And who else? And El Jefe. Iron Kong. It's the Shiz Biz. It's the SSB. And it is the Georgie Porgy and the AK Jr. And there's nothing else left for me to say other than what I always say at this time. Blessed.